Good evening, folks, and welcome back to another Monday night live stream. How are we all doing? I hope some of you had an awesome weekend at Warhammer Fest. I'm sure one or two of you will have been there. I'm trying to very quickly glance at the chat to see if anyone any names that will have been. I think Steve's in from Top Table Gaming there. Hello, Steve. And I know he was there with Ben, so no doubt he'll have some thoughts on this as well. But yeah, we've got a nice crowd in tonight. I don't know how many we've got in, actually. Let me see if I can see any numbers. I can't see any numbers from here. My eyesight's not good enough. So yeah, nice little chat in there, and see everyone's having a bit of a natter. We've got plenty of stuff to talk about tonight. So obviously there'll be Warhammer Fest and all of the different things that were announced at Warhammer Fest for you Games Workshop fans. And we're going to kind of focus the topic tonight on the new contrast paints, and more importantly, the contrasting opinions, as not everybody seems to be overly happy with them randomly. I'll be honest, when I first found out what they were, I was a little bit like, it's nothing really very special. However, as the day went on and I saw some examples, I was pleasantly surprised, and I'm not ashamed to say I kind of ate my words, I think, as the day went on. But there's lots of different mixed opinions. I'm sure you folks in the chat will also have your opinions as well. So yeah, we'll see what you all think. Let's have a look and see who we've got. So first up, actually, I was going to say first up we've got Stuart Noble. However, we did have Stephen Bonner in, who was in about 3 or 4 o'clock or something like that, and left a comment. Unfortunately, I think when they're older comments, they kind of get lost off. So I can't remember what it was you said, Steve, but thank you for dropping in the comment. We've got Stuart Noble in. It says, evening. Good evening, fella. How are you doing? We've got Mark in as well from Dice Tales. He says, have they priced them yet? They look good to me. I don't think they've officially priced anything yet, but I would assume they're going to be somewhere in the region of the price of the bigger wash pots, I would guess. So I don't even know how much they are now. Are we talking about $4.50, something like that, I think? Stu's in there, not sure, he's been offline most of the day, but like them too. Hopefully get some of the minis finished and looking good. Yeah, we'll get back onto the kind of the uses or how useful they are, or opinions a little bit later on. We have got Claudio came in earlier on as well. This is evening Claudio. He says, hey all, unfortunately I have to sleep right now as I have to wake up really early and it's an hour later here. Yeah, time difference is a bit of a pain. He says, so have a nice chat everyone, and I'll tune in tomorrow. And he says, oh, and to topic, I think I have a few different army painted spray cans where I wash the main colour, so it's nearly the same effect, I guess. We will see. I kind of thought that as well when I first saw them yesterday, but as the day's gone on, as the day went on, and it was Saturday and not yesterday, I think there's a bit more to it, and I'll touch on that as well, and I'll explain what they are as well, because some people I think are still a little bit kind of unsure exactly what they are. And Stu saying, yeah, they're upgraded Nighthaunt Gloom paint. Yeah, kind of very. I would imagine that's kind of what set the ball rolling for them. We've got different gear TV in. It says, good evening all. I'm not happy about these new paints. Good evening, first of all, and secondly, let me know in the chat why you're not happy about them. Dice Tail says, all the rumours of tartan contrast due later in the year true. You can buy tartan paint now. It just doesn't come out like tartan. It's you can buy camo paint as well. We've got Jamie in there from Devious 2K as well, our first member of the evening. And I don't think I actually said thank you to you, Jamie, because I think you actually joined as a member, not during a live stream, so you never got the nice little message on screen and stuff. So first of all, welcome to the chat again tonight, mate. And second of all, thank you for joining as a member as well. Not only is he a member, he's also my top Patreon as well. My top level Patreon. So thank you, Jamie, for all of your support, buddy. Never goes missed kind of thing. Oh, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of, I never take it for granted. That was kind of what I was trying to get at. He's asking why not happy as well. Different gear saying, I feel it's nothing new, nothing you can't achieve by thinning your paints and experimenting. That was kind of where my head was at when I first saw them, but we'll get into the detail in a bit anyway. Yeah, Jimmy's saying there, if you can highlight in one go, you're a better hobbyist than me. If you can highlight, you're a better hobbyist than me. And he's saying the edge highlight is the grey primer coming through. Yeah, all speculation till they're out, I guess. It is speculation. However, there are a lot of people have tried them now over the weekend at Warhammer Fest. So it's not just kind of purely market, and there's plenty of people have their hands on them as well. So, yes, Steve's in from Top Table Gaming. Evening, buddy. How are you doing? We got Marcus de Cullen says, hello all, hope you're well. Good evening, Marcus. How are you? Welcome to the chat tonight. Stuart there saying that a set of paints to aid the not so good painters and also for quick armies. I think we're underestimating them, and I'll come on to this as well. If we think that these are just paints for noobs or for new painters or for kids, I think we're underestimating what they can do. We've got Paul Welch in and says, are we all in? We are, Paul, and thank you very much for coming in, buddy. I will say, I've got it in my notes here. I have got notes. I wanted to give Paul's Walking Dead event a plug as well. So, for those that might know, Paul ran a Walking Dead event, Winter's End, which was in early December, I think it was, last year. Myself and Jason went to. Had a really, really good day. Really enjoyed it. Paul ran a fantastic event. And he's running another one this year. So on the Sunday, the 28th of July, and again, it is at Element Games in Stockport, near Manchester in the UK. On the 28th of July, he's running an event called Trial by Fire. And this is another one-day Walking Dead event. So I'm going to be there as well. I'm going to be doing some live streaming from the event that day as well. So make sure that if you can't make it or you're not in the UK, maybe it's a bit expensive to come for a one-day event. Make sure you stay tuned to this channel as well, and I'll be covering that from live streaming during the day as well. I'll be doing some bits of videos maybe as well with scenarios and the build up to it. But yeah, make sure you head over. You can check it out on Facebook. There's also, I think I've got a link to it here as well. If you pop in Trial by Fire, Walking Dead All Out War Tournament, I'm sure you'll find it. Tickets, if I can find the details here. Let's have a quick technically I've got to click on these as well and see if I can find it. Tickets are, I can't find it now. Paul, tell me in the chat, mate, how much tickets are, because I can't find it. I can't find it while I'm trying to do two things at once. But they're certainly reasonably priced. Fantastic scenarios, all custom done for the event. The scenery was fantastic. The stuff that you got in the goodie bag was fantastic. I would urge anybody who's even on the fence about maybe attending their first event or their first Walking Dead event, there's no better one to get involved in than to head over to this one. So yeah, stay tuned. There'll be more on this channel, but consider picking up a ticket and heading over and joining in. We got Paul Palms in. Good evening, Paul. How are you doing? He said he's just disappointed they didn't release a special set of glasses you can wear to make your models look better. They have made, they're called sunglasses, and then you don't see half the problems. Stu's in there. Also, some people don't enjoy the craft side of the hobby, but like to play. I got into this hobby as a painter, really, and that was what I really enjoyed. And it was the fact I'd painted up so much stuff that I decided to find out how to play some of these games, really. I did it purely just as a bit of a chill, kind of relaxing hobby, sitting painting models. But as time's gone on, I definitely enjoy the playing now more than the painting. And I'm looking for ways to speed things up, looking for ways to get things on the table quickly. And there are games that I want to play that I know I'll never get an army painted for. Games like Kings of War, as an example. And they really put me off. So anything that speeds that process up is definitely is a win in my book. We've got, oh, chat's just jumped up as I was trying to look through something there. VG is in, he says, morning black jacketeers. I quite like black jacketeers, mate. It's like the green jacket that you get in there in golf in the Masters. The black jacketeers, I like that, mate. Good evening anyway, buddy. And Paul says he likes to build up the anticipation. I think that was what I was saying about everyone was in early, weren't they? We got Steve Evans in. Good evening, Steve. How are you doing, mate? What did I just see? You've been painting up some D&D stuff, I think I've just seen on Facebook. Looking very nice, mate. And Stu says beer glasses. VG is here. Me says anticipation. Frank a sign. I think it was a bit of Rocky Horror there. I think we're going on. We got Chris Warden and good afternoon. Afternoon, everyone. He says good afternoon, buddy. I hope you've got a nice suitable tipple there. A nice little whiskey for watching the show tonight. Welcome to the chat, buddy. VJ saying Mon Paul. VJ saying he's got to put the kettle on. We got Matt Prescott. Good evening, Matt. How are you, my friend? Not a name I've recognised from the chat before. I apologise if you've been in, mate. But if this is your first time, let me know down in the chat. If it is your first time, let me know how you found the channel and let me know what you're playing or what you're painting at the minute, buddy. Jamie saying, look at you with your fancy soft focus. This is where this is where the Patreon money goes, buddy. Buying a new lens so you get this lovely blurred background out. Craig says, hi all, the stream starts around my usual bedtime, but as I have no work tomorrow, I thought I'd catch it live. Well, first of all, Craig McCartney, thank you for dropping into the chat. Again, another new name to me, I think. I do see a lot of names, so maybe I might have missed it before, but if this is your first time, thanks for coming in, buddy. And I appreciate you staying up a bit later as well, so thank you very much. We've got Al Crabbian as well, says, hope all well. Evening, Al. We've got Flying Mammal in there having a wave. Wouldn't be a live stream without Flying Mammal. Good evening, Ruth. How are you? Mark says, evening all. Good evening, Mark. But I'm only just getting up to the 9 o'clock stuff now. I'm well behind. Hello, Mark. Hello, Rui. Hello, Paul Noxie as well. We've got Paul Emin as well. We've got Wyatt Wagner in. Good evening to all of you. Lovely to have so many of you in the chat tonight. Paul said he was sat and watching the advert for some reason. I'll tell you why you were sitting watching it, buddy. Because that's how I get my ad revenue. Jamie says, people aren't happy with them and just doing the usual gatekeeping crap. That, my friend, is exactly what prompted the reason to have this chat tonight. Because I did think, this contrast paint's been done to death, actually. But it was the fact that there was such kind of polar opposite opinions. Not just kind of, oh, I like it, or I don't like it. There was some quite kind of snobbish opinions of, oh, it's not for pro painters. It's kind of, there was one comment that said it was cheating. So yeah, I'll get onto that in a second anyway. Catching up. Let me skip ahead a little bit and catch up with some of this chat. Furious George is in. He says it's 8 a.m. here. Waking up to your mug. What could be better? George, thank you very much, buddy. Much appreciated. Let's have a look. We've got only one Pinman in as well. I only recently realised that it's because your name is Paul Inman, isn't it? Is that right? Good evening, buddy, anyway. We've got Henrik in as well. Evening, Henrik. Jamie says, I like to work for charity, don't like to talk about it. Skullmunch is in as well. Good evening, Skullmunch. How are you doing? He says he's keen to give the paint a go as well before giving a proper opinion. I agree as well, mate. I've never tried them myself. I do want to give them a try before I really form an opinion. But my opinion on what I've seen so far has changed, which I think in its own little way is worth talking about. Let's skip ahead a little bit as well. I'll say in there, I don't think the pot of contrast paints to replace the traditional painting methods, but give people an easier option. It is an easier option, but I'll come on to it in a second. I don't want to kind of start on the chat. I want to kind of catch up and see who we've got in the chat first of all, because we've got a load of new names in tonight as well. We've got Robert Zunk in. He said he's made it, but he's just going to watch. He took a pain pill. I saw you'd been to the dentist, Robert, so thanks for joining in, buddy. I really do appreciate you coming in, mate. Thank you for that. We've got Andy Smith in as well. Evening, Andy Smith. He says, evening, everyone. Hope all is well. Especially now I have a werewolf app. Nice one, buddy. Paul saying he's finally sorted his minis, ready to watch. You're all set now, mate. You put your feet up, stick the volume up a little bit, just chill. I'll talk you through it. Take your time. We've got Gary Hollandale in, says, good evening, Andy. Good evening, Gary. Not spoken in a little while, buddy. Hope you're really well. Paul says, £20 of the tickets. Yes, thanks very much. I'm catching up now. So it's £20 for tickets for Trial by Fire. So anybody into The Walking Dead, you will do a lot worse than to check out this event. Element Games in Stockport, 28th of July. And it's on a Sunday as well. So if you've got a little bit of travelling, you can always come down the night before, stay over, have a beer, and then have the event the next day as well. So that's certainly my plans anyway. Paul saying as well, he's got, it includes a goodie bag, includes a special printed scenario pack, free terrain crate box set, lunch on the day, and chances to win all sorts of prizes like the new Hellboy gamer. Yes, I saw your pictures, mate. Fantastic stuff to be given away. And also a printed custom terrain for the scenarios. Or painted, sorry, not printed. Hethwell's in as well. Good evening, Hethwell. He says, cheers, crew. Hi, Andy. Hope all's good and dandy. It certainly is, my friend. We've got Douglas Painter in as well. Good evening, buddy. How are you doing? Another one of the members. He says he's in for the moment. Thank you very much, mate. Appreciate it, especially you guys overseas as well, who've got a bit of funny kind of time differences and stuff. I really do appreciate the amount of you that really make the effort to come in every week, even though it's kind of like 6 o'clock in the morning or it's 11 o'clock at night or whatever it is. I really do appreciate that. We've got Aggression in. It says, evening, he's painting Infinity models and playing Hellboy and role-playing. Plenty going on, buddy. Good evening. Douglas says, you look very Canadian tonight. The rugged check shirt. Do you know what it is, buddy? The little microphone I've got, I don't know if you can see it on the chat there, my little clip-on microphone was rubbing on my neck when I wore it with a t-shirt, so I've literally just pulled the shirt out of the wardrobe just so I can clip my microphone on. That's what it was for. Matt says he's been in a few times and he found me from Top Table and The Weekender. He's not been playing anything else at the minute. It's a busy time. Well, thanks very much, mate. I'm sorry I didn't remember you from last time, but as you can imagine, there's a few names scroll past. Paul saying there, how's paint on a model cheating? Yes, I'll agree. I'll come on to that one in a second. We'll catch up very quickly on a few more of these names. Yeah, Paul's there saying, only one Pinman. He's saying it's correct. He tried to get the username Pinman on a forum and someone already had. So now you're the only one, Pinman. Nice one, mate. Robert Marshall's in as well. Good evening, Robert. He says, long time. Luckily, I'm not too busy to catch the stream, but yes, anything to speed up the hobby is a bonus. Agreed, mate. Agreed. Skullmunch says, I think everyone should use a single brush and only use red, blue, and yellow paint. Yes, agreed. That's true painting, isn't it? Just use your primary colours, mix everything else yourself. That's the true skills. I'm sure that's exactly how Angel Heraldez does it as well. VG is saying, if anyone's in the US Midwest, the Tabletop Minions Expo is a month away, and he's going to be teaching people to play Blitz Bowl. Excellent stuff, mate. Really, really good that you're kind of giving a little bit back to the community and teaching some games there. I didn't realise until recently that that James Hewitt had written the rules for Blitz Bowl as kind of a... I don't know if he did it before he left GW or if he did it kind of as a consultant. I didn't realise that until recently. Paul's saying there, surely you mean the walking dead. I'm not that Geordie, that's why I do say walking. Excuse me. We got Russell Higgins in as well. Sup. What's up, mate? How are you doing? Peter Tufson as well. He says he's new to the chat. Good evening, Peter. How are you doing? He says people claim that the army paint a quick shade was cheating. Someone on a forum a while ago made a point by painting a Tyranid with his own blood and a brush from his own hair. First of all, buddy, thank you for joining the chat. I think everybody likes to kind of to say that if it's not the traditional methods, it's cheating, isn't it? We've got Brian Sheenan as well. Good evening, buddy. He says we call it a Sudbury dinner jacket over here. I don't know, I think when you become a male of a certain age and a certain weight, checks work pretty well for you. I think you'll find that. Hethwell is saying, so someone enlighten me, what's this contrast paint thing? I have a hunch it's not about colour wheel. That's where I'll start, buddy. Give me 2 minutes and that's where I'll start the chat. Flying Mama says, hashtag mugwatch. I think I'm letting the side down tonight, Ruth. I've got myself a nice pint glass, which is a Cruz Campo one that was acquired from a holiday in Spain. But I just got some orange juice. My throat's still a little bit sore. My nose is a bit bunged up. So I'm just trying to get some juice in tonight. We got Henry Mendez as well as in. How are you, mate? He says, I'm really well, thanks, Henry. How are you, mate? Andy Smith's asking who's in Chesterfield or Sheffield. Is there anybody in around that area? Let us know down the chat. Flying Man is saying hello to the new people. This is your last chance to run. Shh, Ruth, don't tell them, man. Don't tell them. And Paul Welch is saying there, people claim airbrushing is cheating. Yes, they do, mate. And that's another one I wanted to kind of crack onto as well. So Paul M says, as my eyesight deteriorates with my increasing bodily decrepitude, any paint on a model is all looking good. Definitely, mate. And we've got Tim Kelly sneaking in out there as well. It says, hey, Andy and all. I think I saw a picture on Twitter, I think today, mate. You were stuck in a hotel again tonight. So thank you for joining the chat, buddy. Someone says that's not orange juice, that's a pint of orange contrast paint. Yeah, it actually looks a little bit kind of luminous on camera there, doesn't it? The way the light's hitting it, it's just kind of orange cordial. Right, let's get on to the main point of the chat. So, the whole point of why I want to talk about it tonight was because my opinion changed through the day. So from it being announced first thing in the morning, I think it was actually leaked from like a Japanese or a Chinese, I think it was like a Japanese show it was leaked from just before Warhammer Fest kicked off. Then we saw the Warhammer official video of it. After first seeing what it was, I kind of just thought, well, it's just like what we do now. So if you've seen some of my painting videos when I've been trying to do speed painting, there's been videos where if I did I think it was the oak video, where I prime it white, wash it with a green, what's it called again? Beal tan green wash, which gives kind of a contrast skin tone. Looks a little bit like a highlight to it because the white shows through on the highlights of it, if you like, on the high points, and the wash runs into the recesses and gives a bit of a shade as well. So I was kind of like a little bit underwhelmed, I'm honest. I kind of thought, well, this is not really something new. It's what we've already got. So I was a bit down about it. I think I was expecting some kind of big announcement. Then as the day went on, we saw more and more pictures that were being shared from Warhammer Fest, which showed some really nice effects on certain models. So there was some squigs there that looked great with the red. There was some Space Marines with blue armor. And one thing that started to come through at this point was that it wasn't just pale colours. There were some quite deep reds in there. There were some quite sort of deep blues. Some of the greens looked very nice as well on the orc skins. So it started to kind of look like it was actually something a little bit different at this point. And that was when I kind of started to think about it, that actually it really does have its uses, not only kind of to speed things up and to get new painters into it. Part of me thinks like, if I think about how people are talking about how it's like it's not for experienced painters, I kind of get that idea, because actually if you want to get into sort of painting to a higher level, if you want to go for kind of competition painting and you start using these contrast paints, you're probably just going to kind of get sucked into oh, look how great it looks and look how fast it is. Because to be fair, I think it does look pretty good, I'll be honest. So maybe you won't develop those kind of fancy brush skills and the wet blending and the highlight and then the shading and all that kind of stuff. Maybe you will. If you're interested in painting, maybe you will go on and kind of do those skills down the line. So I can kind of see some of that thing. However, Twitter, which is kind of like a bit of a, this is the kind of place where people sort of go to rant about this kind of stuff, kind of came alive a little bit over the weekend. Now I should clarify what this contrast paint is. So as I mentioned, it's essentially a one coat paint which you put over a very light base coat. Now there is a contrast primer that works with this system, and I'll come on to the contrast primer in a second. So you prime your miniature, you then paint this over the areas that you want to be that colour, and it essentially works like a wash where it runs into the recesses. However, because it's got quite a high pigment to it, it really does almost stain the model, if you like, with coloured pigment. So where it runs into the recesses, it gets very dark and it gives a really good shade. Where it runs off the high points, the very light base colour, base prime shows through and gives like an edge highlight to it. And then in the middle, you've got this almost mid-tone. So it's almost like painting on in one coat and getting your base coat, your edge highlighting, and your shade all in one go, which is absolutely fantastic. There is ways you can kind of do that now, as I've explained. However, it's a case of mixing inks and mixing sort of flow aids and matte mediums and different kind of stuff. What GW are doing is they are coming out with a range of out-of-the-pot stuff that you don't even have to dilute. There's no sort of thinning them down. They don't mix particularly well with water, to be fair. They just literally out of the pot onto your model and you get this kind of great look. Now, it's not just for one colour models. So it's not, if you want to do like an army of Imperial Fists, it'll work fantastic. But if you're wanting to do it for certain things, so Orc Skin is a prime example, it'll look great for Orc Skin if you're doing a horde army of Orcs. But then you can always go in and kind of do all your other bits of kind of armor and the weapons and stuff. I would say that from what I've seen online and from comments about people who have tried it, certainly a bit of a shout for Cam if he follows this one up. He left a message in the Facebook group tonight, so thanks, Cam. It works better on models that have a lot of detail. So places where you can get those edge highlights and places where you can get those shades. So something like kind of a scaly skin, like a Seraphon type thing, works really well. Big flat areas, I wouldn't fancy kind of painting like a Dreadnought with it or something like that. I'm not sure how that would, whether it would start to look a little bit pooled and a little bit kind of mottled a little bit. But it's all got to be tried. We'll find out more as it goes on. Now, one thing that is really kind of coming out is some people have said that this is like cheating. So going back to the kind of Twitter over the weekend, some people have said it's like cheating. You're not doing it properly. And this is the point that kind of Jamie made, really. It's almost like we've now got this, it's almost this elitism, this gatekeeping when it comes to painting now. So it's almost a case of people that have been painting for years who've kind of been trying to put the effort in and trying to improve their highlighting and trying to improve their shades are a little bit peeved now that there's a simpler way to do it. In the same way people kind of throw a little bit, I was going to say throw shade, they have a bit of a downer on the army painted dips, they have a bit of a downer on Agrak's Earthshade, and they're kind of like that just washed army type thing, or that washed shading. And people also think that airbrushing is like cheating as well, because it can give you quite a nice kind of, like a zenithal kind of a black prime underneath, a light prime on the top, build your colours up with different shades of colours, and it can make sort of, especially like vehicles and stuff, can make them look really, really nice in a very, very quick and efficient way. So I think some people are getting a little bit on the fringe of bullying about it, really, to almost to say like it's not real painting and it's a disgrace and it's just for people who can't paint, or it's just for people who want to paint fast. I honestly think that we will see as some really good painters get their hands on this stuff, we'll see it creating some really nice effects. So if the stuff we've seen so far is basically being primed with this kind of off-white contrast primer in a can, they also sell it in a little tub as well in case you need to touch anything up. But it's just been this off-white prime, and then this kind of just being slopped on by people trying it out really at Warhammer Fest. I think as we start to see people maybe getting some kind of zenithal priming underneath, and then maybe sort of learning to how to use it, so putting it on quite thin, or maybe sort of sponging it off while it's drying and getting some really different effects. It's just another tool in the toolbox of the painter, like dry brushing, like wet blending, like ink washing, like pin washing, like airbrushing, like all of these different things. This is just another tool. Now, it does have a really good use, which is to speed things up and get armies on the table quick. Me and Paul were having a very brief chat on Facebook there about how it'll be ideal for kind of board game minis. So I can imagine me getting some of the red stuff to paint my Hellboy things and a pot of the green stuff to do all the frog monsters, and I'll whiz through them in no time. Maybe a black prime, the white stuff over the top, and then kind of give it a wash and see how that turns out. So I'm quite looking forward to giving that a try. And another reason I'm kind of encouraged by it is I've been painting up some bolt action Germans and US Airborne at the minute, using the Army Painter range with the basic paint and then the quick shade over the top. And actually, I've been pleasantly surprised just how good that effect is as well. It's not going to win me any awards. I haven't done any highlighting. I haven't done any other shading. I've not tried to do anything fancy with it. I've tried to do it as it says on the back of the box, just to see what effect that has. And I'll be honest, I've been really pleasantly surprised. So I think people can kind of gnash their teeth and say they're not for me, and they're not for pro painters or any of that kind of stuff. But I honestly think until we get our hands on them and until we start trying to use them in different ways, it's like a wash now. You can just slap Agrak's Earthshade over the top of something else, and it pulls all the colours together, and it looks great. And it's a quick way to kind of get your shading. However, there are people that will use these shades and these glazes in a very different way as well. So let's have a quick look and see, because we've got a few more people in the chat, I think. So we'll try and catch up with some of these folks. Where are we at? We've got Marcus is saying he admit he was a bit underwhelmed by the advert for the contrast paints. I might have built them up in my head too much before I saw the results. I think their marketing campaign has been really kind of, well, you can do it to it. It can be really strong, but then that first reveal video was actually a little bit of a letdown. If they'd showed some of the models that they showed at Warhammer Fest, that could have been a much better received video, I think. So yeah, I was a little bit like, oh really, after all that, is that what it is? I was kind of on that fence as well. We've got Pete in as well, says, good evening everyone. Good evening Panzer, how are you doing mate? We've also got Michael in, says, yo, I'm here, but at this time I'm listening in the background. Evening buddy. Hethwell is saying, so strong pigments, less layers. One layer mate, the whole point of it is it's meant to be one coat. If you can put more coats on, but all you do is you lose the contrast. So what you'll do is the bits that are mid-tone and the bits that are the highlight, like the edge highlighted bits, like the highlighted bits, you'll lose that contrast between them. So the more layers you put on, the worse the effect is. So you really only want to be putting one layer on. We've got Jeremy Frost in as well. Good evening, Jeremy. And he says, inks. I think it's a little bit more than an ink, to be fair. It's somewhere between kind of an ink and a wash, but a very highly pigmented one. So we got Peter Tuffin saying, I wonder how it'll work with primed models with zenithal highlights or with color primers. I think it just depends upon what color you use. So for example, if you used a purple base color, would that work? Let me think. It's probably won't. I think it's like going over black, isn't it? If you go over black, you're not going to get the high points and the low points so much because it's going to be dark. I think you're going to be better off with these lighter colours, but that's not to say you couldn't kind of run a colour into the recesses, maybe like sort of like, you know how you would do it with a pin wash now, and then tidy it up and then try another one over the top. I think that there'll be some real nice effects when we start to get our hands on it and we try different stuff. Or if you put one wash over the top, one wash onto the model, one of these contrast washes onto the model, let it dry, put another one over the top and maybe try and like sort of stipple it off with some tissue paper to give you a kind of like a mottled kind of almost, I think it's something that maybe like for Death Guard would look really nice. Got Lehman Russ in as well. Good evening, buddy. He says, no excuse for anyone to turn up with a great army of plastic. And I think that's the standpoint that where GW are marketing it from. But I think we may be underestimating that this could just give us some very different effects and some new uses, really. Jeremy saying it's exactly what painting over white primer with ink produces. Yeah, it certainly gives you a very similar effect. I think it's the fact that it's the range of colours that they're using is quite nice. I think it's the fact that it's in sort of handy to use bottles. There's nothing to thin down. I think it's almost the way it's been kind of sold to the consumer, really, as much as I don't think it's kind of, maybe there's more to it. I don't think it's like sort of it's revolutionary and groundbreaking. It's the fact that a company are bringing out a product that you can go to the shop and buy in a pot and just use it. James says he's a first timer. Good evening, James Herbert, then. Thank you for coming in. He says he came from search on contrast paints. He's curious, do they dry shiny, satin or matte? And also wonder how they may look over metallics. First of all, buddy, thanks for coming in. From what I understand, they dry quite matte. So imagine how, I think I forget which one it's called, but it's the kind of that gloom spike, oh, that's not even the right thing. The Nighthorn colour, sorry, how it almost kind of, how that dries. The other side of it is you can always give it a matte coat over the top, but it specifically says that you don't need to. So that's quite interesting. And how it looks over metallics, that's going to be quite interesting. I think, you know, almost kind of doing a bit of a silver base and then maybe going over it with a blue, how that'll kind of give it a very kind of metallic-y feel. There's no metallic colours in the range, so they don't do a metallic contrast paint. But it'll be interesting to see how it goes over metallics. Aggression is saying, I can see airbrush highlights and contrast making for a very fast quality finish. Anything that helps your models look more like you hope they would has to be good for the hobby. I agree, buddy. I think one thing, so I mentioned before how contrast has a base primer, that sort of specific primer for this. It's not white. Let me just get a quick drink while my throat's dry out here. It's not white, and somebody explained in the Facebook group, I think that white has high amounts of a certain ingredient. I forget what it is now off the top of my head. And that actually kind of causes it to be a bit grainy when it's pure white. So it's almost like a very light grey. And the idea is it has to give a very smooth finish for the wash to go over, for the contrast paint to go over. And I also think it's very slightly glossy as well, which helps it flow. So if anybody's ever done any washing before, where you paint your model up, you gloss varnish it, and then you do a wash over the top, you'll really see how it comes off the high spots very quickly and really settles into the recesses. and I think there's maybe a very slightly glossy finish to this. But they have said that it'll work with any primer, it just won't, the finish won't be as good, but you can use it over any primer you want, like any other brand type thing. Hethwell says, get the toys in the table the best way one can. There's no cheating if you're having fun at the table, and no grey or metal to be seen. That's, like I say, that's certainly where it's been aimed at, to try and get people to get their armies painted. Maybe if you've got like a horde army that you've always fancied playing, but the numbers have put you off, this might be a quick way to do it. So if you're doing something like, let's think like Tyranids or something, I think you prime these white and give them a coloured wash. You're halfway there. Like, you know, you pick out some of the spines on the back and stuff like that, or the carapace. Excuse me, pick out like the carapace stuff, maybe with like a blue or something. But you get some really nice effects. We've got here. So Hal Martin says, I've done this with inks for years. Yeah, I think a lot of people have, Hal, but I think it's the first of all, thanks for dropping in, buddy. I think it's more just the way it's packaged. It's some of the colours are really quite bright, really, and quite very highly pigmented. It's just the fact it's not a case of mixing it. There's nothing to do. You can just buy that pot and just put it straight onto the miniature. Art Wilson's in as well. Good evening, Art. He said, evening all, like the sound of this paint. Don't mind the elitists looking down. Whoop, that's just jumped off my chat now. If I go and try and find it back again. Laugh in their face and call them a fool. Sorry. He's saying, don't mind the elitists looking down on me. I'll take any help I can get. Exactly. Lehman Russ says, if someone says they don't have time to paint their models, then you can laugh in their face and call them a fool. I disagree with that, mate, to be honest. If somebody hasn't got time to paint their models, they haven't got time to paint their models. Like, not everybody enjoys the painting side of it. And even for those people that say they don't have time, this still might not speed it up enough. We should never really tell anybody how to hobby. I just think that this is another example, much like army painter dips, much like kind of just using washes over a white prime. I think this is just another method to try and speed things up for people. But we should never look down on anybody because their models are grey plastic. If they want to paint, but they just find that they don't have the skill or something like that, this might be a route in. But if they haven't got the time, they probably still don't have the time for this. Where are we at? We've got Zeblik in as well. Good evening, Zeblik. He says, do you have images or links for an example? I haven't got any linked up tonight to the live stream at the minute. However, if you're on Twitter, if you check out my Twitter feed, it's at BlackJack Legacy. I shared some pictures over the weekend. I'll see if I can do it while we're chatting and stuff like that. But I think I'm trying to do 10 things at once then. But if you check out my Twitter feed, it was definitely, I shared some over the weekend. We've got Underdog Painting. Good evening, Bazza. How are you doing? He said, don't think these paints are for me. I do get why people would use them. I think, Bazza, again, until you use them, mate, you might find there's certain effects that it really just gives you a really good colour for. You know, things like sort of painting sort of swords that have to when you get these really kind of weird kind of edge highlighted swords and stuff, it might just give you a really quick finish. I find I've always liked painting sort of weapons with if I paint them white, wash them with null oil, and then give them a dry brush of silver, it gives a really good metallic effect rather than painting them metal and kind of washing them down. So it's just another tool to use, really. Paul Noxie there saying people don't like change. No one's forcing people to use them. That's exactly right, mate. It's exactly right. I think it's just there is some elitism that basically says that. Thank you, Zeb. Like, I'm just getting a notification on my watch there to see you follow me on Twitter. Thank you very much. Excuse me, my throat's drying out. What were we just saying there? Yeah, like there is a kind of an elitism thing. I think there are some people that do a really good job of kind of edge highlighting and kind of getting the shading right. And I think they feel a bit cheated, I suppose, that basically there's now a really simple way of doing it, but they're still going to have better finishes to their models. Like, let's be honest, these are not going to win any awards at the minute with like until we understand how to use them maybe in a slightly different way. But there was a picture on Twitter over the weekend where somebody had used one of these contrast paints and then done a highlight over the top of it as well, and it looked like it spent way more time on it. So I think we're going to get quite surprised by this stuff. Lehman's saying it could be useful for certain things, especially some commission work. Again, mate, I honestly think we shouldn't kind of jump the gun on this stuff. I think until we get to use it, until people get it in their hands, I think we'll be really surprised at some of the finishes that you can get with it. Steve says, anything that makes things easier sounds good to me. Yeah, I agree. We've got Jez Hunt in as well. Good evening, Jez Hunt. He says, unless people are grinding their own pigments and making their own brushes, they're cheating. Yes, I completely agree, mate. They're all just tools. It's like, am I cheating tonight by using the internet and by using live streaming to talk to you lot? Should I be walking because I can't use the car because that would be cheating? Should I be coming walking around all of your houses and having this conversation? It's just a new way to do something. Doesn't mean it invalidates the old way. People that win golden demons and slayer swords will still be painting sort of with very high level of techniques and different kind of materials. It's just another tool. Paul says, contrast paints look like the perfect thing to get all those thousands of miniatures we all have from the hundreds of Kickstarter satin cupboards. Yeah, and all the stuff that we buy because we've got that urge to get something new and then never get it out of the box. Paul said, I spent years practicing painting to get to where I am. I'm still going to be all over the contrast paints for blitzing through all my board games. Can you imagine, buddy, right? If you can speed up the base layer by using these contrast paints and then building on that with the skills you've got, if that gives you a head start, why would you not use it? Why would you try to kind of like layer up 3 or 4 layers if this gives you the base start and then you can kind of layer from that and you've already got some of the shading in? And why not use it as a head start rather than just being the finished model, which is what a lot of people I think are thinking of it as. Marcus is saying, good point, Andy. Never thought about their use with board game minis. Yeah, that's definitely where I'll be using some. Panzer said he wasn't sold on the Army Painter style, but after trying it, I was sold. I was exactly the same, buddy. I always just, in my head, it was this big tin of like kind of creosote that you dipped your miniatures in, and then it just kind of, it was just gloopy and it basically hid all the details and all that kind of stuff. But I know you've used some of the Army Painter stuff as well, and your miniatures have always been really good. And that kind of got me thinking. And then obviously doing this stuff that I've been working on for Bolt Action. Bolt Action's been a game I've always wanted to play. Loads of miniatures. Probably would never get an army together. Warlord and Army Painter have got these sets with the Army Painter dip in it. And I've been using them. And again, I've been pleasantly surprised. I'm not going to win any awards. But I did a whole German half of the starter box in like sort of 2 days or something like that. I've just done a test model for my US airborne model. Really, really surprised how quick that was and how nice that looks, even though I've still got to put the matte varnish over the top of it. I think it's horses for courses. We're not all in this to be the best painters. Some of us just like to play with painted miniatures. And there are, as we mentioned before when I said about how the hobby's all fragmented, there's so many different levels of people within our hobby. People that have stacks of money and no time on their hands, and they pay commission painters to paint fantastic miniatures so they can play with beautiful armies. There are some people who don't play the game and just like to paint fantastic sort of miniatures. And then there are people like me, kind of, who I don't like to play with unpainted miniatures, but I also don't have a lot of time to paint them. And if I can find a kind of a level where I'm happy enough and that done is done and good enough is good enough, then this is just another tool in the tool belt to help me get to that stage. Excuse me. Christopher says there, as it was pointed out, this product will be good for people with less than perfect use of their hands. Yeah, I think there's definitely another avenue there as well, mate. I think if you're trying to, if you're trying to have different colors of the contrast paint side by side, like kind of shirt and trousers, you got to be quite careful, because once you go over, you can't kind of the next color doesn't cover it over. So you can buy the base primer in a little pot to kind of to tidy it up and then paint it back again. So there will be some way you have to be a little bit tidy with it, but in general, like I can imagine this is going to be a fantastic tool for painting like Imperial Fist, like yellow armor. Just sort of slap it on, let them all dry off, and then pick out the kind of around the shoulder pads and stuff like that. Pete saying, think this means more painted armies. That's better. I agree, mate. I'm never against anybody if they want to field an unpainted army. It's their hobby. I'm not going to tell them how to do it. However, for me personally, I quite like to play it on a table where the miniatures are painted. It just kind of builds into the story and the theme of it. VJ saying, definitely be interested to see what the pros do with them. I'm sure the new techniques that develop become the new hotness. Yeah, it would not surprise me, mate. It would not surprise me at all. Paul Palm says, seems like GW built their new film studio mainly to make comedy videos. I think they're doing a good job of trying to bring something a little bit different. They're leading the way when it comes to kind of gaming companies of doing their own video stuff. So things like Warhammer TV, things like the trailers they're doing. They've got a really good system going, but sometimes it kind of misses the mark a little bit. I think this was one of them for me. I wasn't blown away when I saw the original video. It looked a little bit too gimmicky. I'd rather it was a bit more instructional, just to show off the product, show off how good it was. Because almost, but when you start to kind of almost bring comedy into it, you almost start to think, is it really what they say it is? Like, they're trying to tell me that there's shades and highlights and base coats all in one thick coat. Like, there's a balance, really, isn't it, about kind of humour with facts. So I get you on that one, mate. We got Scott B in. Good evening, Scott. How are you doing, mate? I think you're new to the chat as well, so thanks for coming in. So he said, now I'll finally be able to paint something besides Necrons. I know exactly what you mean, mate. I know exactly what you mean. Jez is saying there, some people hate painting but want to play with painted armies. This is going to help them. Yeah, that's me, mate. I love playing with painted armies. I wouldn't get into a game to play with unpainted miniatures. So if I choose an army, I pick an army on the basis of, is it an army I'd quite like to paint? That kind of stuff. So for me, this is going to be great stuff. We've got Colton Lane as well. Good evening, Colton. How are you doing? Another new name to the chat tonight, so thanks for coming in. He said he's excited to mess about with them, but curious as to what they're going to price them at. I'm guessing somewhere between their regular pot and the wash pot. I'd assume they'll be the same price as the bigger wash pots. So the big wash pots come in at, I forget the sizes now from a milliliter point of view, but they're like the big agrax and stuff like that. Same as some of their technical paints, like that crackled earth stuff. I forget what that's called now. The names escape me. I can imagine they're going to be priced around that price, to be fair. They're certainly not going to be any cheaper, I wouldn't think. Where are we up to? We got Jesse Hamilton as well. Good evening, Jesse. How are you doing, buddy? Long time no chat. Hope you're doing well, buddy. He says, for troops, this seems great. Also, super excited that my kids can actually paint something. There is that as well. I mean, it's it rather than just kind of splodging on and having to learn how to thin paint down, and you can literally get a wash brush and kind of slap this stuff on and get something that looks half decent as well. So right from beginners, right the way up to experts, I think there's a use for this stuff. We've got King John in. Good evening, King John. Should I say good evening, or should I be bowing? Hope you're well. My chat's just jumped off the top of my screen now, so I've got no idea where I'm up to. Oh, where was that gone? We got a lot of chatting tonight. I'm miles behind on the chat now. Where are we at? Apologies. There we are. King John, we're back. Let's have a look. Tim Kelly saying if you can paint up these stormtroopers fast, he's in. They do have a white, which I was quite interested in actually. So that'll be quite interesting to see how the white contrast paint works. Paul's saying sealing base coats and spray colours with a satin spray or an airbrush varnish would probably give you a good base for these. I think an airbrush base would be a good base for these. I think because it's just like so smooth as well. Michael says he's reacting here. I wonder if there's a skin tone in it. Bone and skin tone will do the job for me. There is a skin tone in it, buddy. So I don't have the picture to hand at the minute, but the thumbnail for this video shows you the range of all the paints. I'll pop something up in the Facebook chat as well, Facebook group as well later on. So anybody that's new to the stream tonight, I do have a Facebook group as well. You'll find a link to it down in the description below this video. Just a bunch of kind of hobbyists all hanging out and sharing sort of what they're up to, what they're playing and what they're painting. I'll share a picture in that group once the live stream finishes tonight, and you'll see the full range of these paints. Let's just jump up a little bit as well. Jesse Hamill says he enjoys painting, but like an hour a week to do it. Yes, I know exactly what you mean, buddy. Hethwell saying 30 minutes a day is 100 minis done in a short time away. Certainly from what I've learned from using this Army Painter stuff, especially once you start to put the dip stuff over top of it, it kind of hides a multitude of sins, any little bits you've missed and that kind of stuff. I can imagine this is just a case of kind of getting it on there as well. So anything that helps, Phil Wilkinson's in as well. Good evening, Phil. Welcome to the chat tonight, buddy. How are you doing? Green Tree's in as well. Good evening, Green Tree. Says, in regard to the new paint, I'll take all the help I can get. High five to that, buddy. Chris says, personally, I don't care if someone plays with bare plastic. I don't care either, if I'm honest, mate. I personally don't like to play with bare plastic. Part of the hobby for me is to play with painted miniatures, but I would never kind of berate anybody for not painting their minis. That's entirely up to them. Douglas is saying, if you're painting for someone else's minis, it's great. The look should be good. Definitely, mate. Jez is saying, I wonder how it'll be for terrain. It could be quick and interesting. It could be, but I bet it could be expensive as well. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what it does. Phil said he's having his first proper game on Friday. Let me know how it goes, buddy. Looking forward to hearing about that. Let's have a look. We go down. Furious George is saying, for me, it's a game changer. I get a handful of hours a week. I'd rather use that time to play. Anyone that doesn't like them, don't buy them. Pretty much that's the case, mate. Death by Dies in as well. Good evening, mate. He said he saw the contrast in effect on Saturday. If it helps unpainted armies get some colour, hell yes. It's quick and relatively simple to do, and just some basic colours on minis look better than plastic. That's really cool that you've we got somebody in the chat here who's seen it up close as well. It's everybody I know that's seen it is nobody's kind of ranting about it, saying that it's awful. I think it's more a case of we all need to get it in our hands. We need to because I think a lot of people were, certainly at Warhammer Fest, were almost just kind of slapping it on just to see what it did, see what effect it does. But I think if we kind of take our time with it and maybe move it around a little bit more to try and create more of a contrast to it, maybe see what it's like to to put more than one layer on, try different colours, try doing it over like a sort of like a Zenith or Prime, all those different things, I think we'll really start to see truly what this stuff can do. Paul said, I hardly get to play a game, so I'd play against matchstick men if I had to. Yeah, I know that feeling, mate. We got Javier Garcel in. Good evening, buddy. How are you doing? He says, I've got some models I plan testing with on like the Keeper of Secrets. Yeah, I think there's certain models that this stuff will look fantastic on. So, certainly when I saw some of the Seraphon, that kind of, you know, how their backs have kind of got that like kind of crisscross scales on them, it really settled into them nicely. That they look really good. Let's have a look. We've got Andrew Pearson as well. Good evening, Andrew Pierce. He says, hi there, Andy. If these make it easier for people to get into painting, speed up painting, or enjoy painting more, it's only a good thing. If people don't like them, then they don't have to. I agree, buddy. I think I think there's two sides. So one is I think it certainly will get painted models on the table faster, and that is fantastic. We shouldn't kind of forget that. But I think what's been overlooked a little bit, and I've mentioned it a few times tonight, I think is that these are another tool to be used, and even pro painters or people more experienced in painting will find some really useful effects that will come out of using these in a slightly different way that maybe we've not seen yet. VJ saying you should be clearly using carrier pigeons. God, am I that far behind in the chat? I need to catch up a bit, don't I? I need to catch up. Let's have a bit scroll down. So we have got Jamie is saying you have inspired me to get a Soviet army for bolt action and the Soviet paint set. Right, buddy. In that case, then we need to get a game lined up soon. Then definitely, buddy, definitely. I'm kind of impressed with just the finish on them. That's, you know, it's not, you're never going to get detailed sort of highlighted noses and sort of cheeks, and I'm not doing the eyes. I'm specifically doing them as you would if you just wanted to do them out of the box using the method that's explained. I'm not doing any extra highlighting. I'm not going the extra mile and putting eyes in or kind of dry brushing anything up or trying to highlight afterwards. I want to see what that method from Army Painter gives you if you just follow it and get them on the table quick. And so far, really pleasantly impressed. We got Ghost Ace 901 in. Good evening, buddy. He says, good evening. From the examples you've seen, it's best to use a white undercoat. Yeah, I think I mentioned before, I don't know if you were in the chat, buddy, I think there is a specific contrast primer that they are selling for this method. It's not white, it's kind of like a very light grey. I use a Vallejo Ghost Grey when I'm priming stuff. That always gives me a nice light finish to it. And I think the idea is you need that light colour to allow the highlights to give it a highlight. If you use a dark colour, I think you'll lose that highlight really. Where are we at as well? Phil, do not worry, mate, about your first game. You'll have a load of fun. Yeah, so no need to get anxious about it, mate. Douglas says, question and observation. This is a bigger picture product for GW. They're making games for the newbie and veteran, now making painting easier. I used to think GW wanted to make snobs. I can't say that. That's a really interesting comment, because some of the other things that were announced at the weekend was they are introducing a way to play smaller pointed AOS games. So there's going to be ways of running kind of tournaments around 1,000 points, which can only be good. We've got Warcry coming out in July, which is going to be lower model count games again. So from an Age of Sigmar point of view, you've got Warcry, these kind of smaller point games. You've got Skirmish as well, which is kind of kicking around the background. You've got main AOS as well. From a 40k side of things, you've obviously got Kill Team, which has got multiple different ways to kind of go with the elite and the commanders and the Kill Team arena. You've got many different options in that. You've then got standard 40k, and then Apocalypse was announced as well, it's been redesigned to speed up play of huge big games. And I think one thing that stood out to me was they've got some movement trays in there now as well for those bigger games, which I'm assuming means you're just moving. If the idea is just to move troops around the board faster, or whether they're going to be shooting as a unit of like a kind of a movement tray, that'll be interesting to find out. But it really does feel like they're trying to put products in there all the way through the different levels. They've got obviously got Underworlds in there as well. They're bringing in sort of from a video game side of things. They've got Funko Pops coming out. There was a tie-up with Bandai that they're doing to do kind of action figures. And then all of these new paint ranges as well with a number of years ago they went to the layer paint. So there was like base, layer, highlight, the dry brush ones, the technical paints. They're the only company really that are trying to attract people in from all different angles. And well, they should be. They're by far the biggest. But are they the biggest because they're doing this, or are they doing this because they're the biggest? I think they are. The years of kind of ignoring the hardcore and just relying on new people coming in, almost like that leaking bucket model of just it doesn't matter how many people drop out of the hobby as long as you bring more in. It feels like they're past that now. So it's really interesting to talk about that, actually. Good point, Douglas. We've got Darren Whitehouse as well. I'll try saying that with my teeth in. We've got Darren Whitehouse in. Good evening, buddy. He says, hail and well met. Sorry I'm late. Just finished watching Game of Thrones. And Tim says, no spoilers. Yes. Paul said, I don't even use tools. I just bite the bits off the sprues and rub them on an old brick. Wow, God. The chat is going nuts tonight. I'm trying to keep up with it all now. Who else we got in now as well? Jamie saying, I just won't play unpainted armies. Well, no, sorry, and I think you're saying what I'm saying, mate. When I'm saying I don't like to play unpainted armies, what I mean is I don't like to play my models unpainted. My opponent can have whatever they want on the table, but I don't play my own models unpainted. I think you're saying the same thing, mate. Yeah. We've got Jewel Knight Jess in. Good evening, Jess. How the devil are you? Says GW's marketing is on point right now. Yeah, they're on a different level, I think. They've definitely realised the power of a video, haven't they? That's for sure. Matt says, going to have to bow out. All sleeps needed for work on the morrow. Good night, all. Thanks for dropping in, Matt. Really nice to see you. Paul said it's far harder to hide a grey mini on a table. They stand out too much. I saw a picture from a tournament not too long ago, which was a 40k tournament, and somebody was running, I think it was basically Imperial Guard against something else. And I tell you what it was 2 Imperial Guard armies fighting against each other, and there was all grey plastic. And I have no idea how they worked out whose minis were whose. That's the reason why we should have painted miniatures, even just priming them out. You know, that kind of stuff goes a long way, really. But just 2 armies of grey plastic when you're fighting kind of the same models, that must get really messy. 12 News says they have to let Duncan have something to do. He can how to use the contrast colours. It's going to be interesting, actually, because I know not too long ago they recruited a new painter, didn't they, for the studio for doing videos. Now, I wonder if they've been tucked away doing a load of contrast videos, or I wonder if there's something else in the pipeline as well. Let me just leave that hanging out there. Tim says, yeah, GW need a good script writer. Comedians, they ain't. They've got some really good ideas, but I agree. So sometimes it is a little bit cringy. Brian Sains in as well says, what's up, Andy? Just joined, trying to finish these Chaos Marines. Good evening, Brian. How are you doing, fella? Paul saying he doesn't mind the new style of GW's videos. I just think they built their contrast paints way too much with the 50 Shades video and the Matrix. I think they did think about it from a marketing point of view. They got your attention. They got my attention. They got everybody else's attention. So it absolutely worked. I just think the reveal video was a little bit of a misstep. I saw some fantastically painted miniatures just from people taking photographs at Warhammer Fest. I wish they'd showed those in the reveal video, or maybe try to dial back the comedy and sort of do something a little bit different. But in general, it's working. It's working well. VJ saying there, they'll probably be a little bit more expensive than the most expensive paint is right now. They might do, but then I guess the other side of it is, if you buy a pot of paint now, you have to thin that paint down. There's a hell of a lot of pigment in that GW pot at the minute. If these have got less pigment in because they're kind of diluted down to a wash or like a flowable paint like that, maybe there's actually less pigment in them than there is in a small pot. So maybe that's why they're putting them into kind of in that same price range. Who knows? I guess we'll find out soon. Al says, what do you think this does to commission painting? Makes it cheaper, makes it better, not change it all? I think that it shouldn't change commission painting prices unless you are specifically asking somebody to use the contrast paints. At the end of the day, commission painters do not get paid a good hourly rate. So if it means that they can charge the same and get them out quicker, then I think everybody wins. You get your models faster, they actually start to make a decent money out of it, but only if people are happy with that particular finish, I think. Jess is saying, I like to take my time on many minis, but for my Nurgle, I'll definitely be shifting a lot of the work to contrast. Plague bearers deserve it. Yes, I did a painting video about plague bearers. Was it Plague Bearers? Yeah, it was. And I used I think it was, I can't remember what colour it was now, but it was just a wash over a white prime, and then just picking out a green wash to kind of pick out the boils, and it really speeded stuff up. Let's have a look. Death by Die says, regarding the skin, I did chat to someone painting the Blood Reaver and the skin looked pretty good. Yeah, I think they've got a pretty good skin colour, to be honest, in this colour. Paul says, I like how they're bringing people in, but I do worry where they'll draw the line. 40k toys in Happy Meals. Why would that be a problem? I'm trying to wonder. Why do they need to draw the line? So, for example, let's look at Marvel. So it started with comic books. They branched out into movies. The latest Marvel movie has just been the biggest grossing movie in history. It's absolutely knocking out the park. They're universally kind of quite loved by most people. But there's Happy Meals with Avengers. There's cartoons for Avengers. There's kids' toys for Avengers. There's Avengers Lego. Does that devalue the Avengers brand? Does it make you want to see the movies any less? Would having a Space Marine in a McDonald's Happy Meal make you want to play the game any less? I personally don't see the issue with that, but I know a lot of people do. But that's just my personal one. VJ says he'd love a Happy Meal crossover. Jess says it should be cool with dropper bottles for the regular paints, but use a wet palette so the washes and stuff can stay. Yeah, well, I think these new contrast stuff, you're meant to literally just paint kind of straight out of the pot, really. There's not even any need to dilute them down or thin them down. I've exclusively used GW paints or Citadel paints for most of my kind of painting time, and it's only when I got some of these Army Painter paints that I've really used dropper bottles, and I find I'm using less paint, and I'm finding I'm kind of controlling a little bit more on a palette now, rather than having to sort of dip a brush into the pot and put it onto a palette and then clean the brush off and then sort of thin it down. So yeah, dropper bottles definitely have their uses, but I wouldn't want to go through all my GW stuff and move it into dropper bottles, that's all. VJ saying, Andy with the teas. I'm not spilling anything, mate. Michael says he thinks the videos were pretty childish and they missed an opportunity. They worked. We're sitting here talking about them. So whatever you think about them, sometimes bad marketing is the best kind of marketing. So VJ says, what do you know? I assumed it was the contrast stuff that you knew about before the announcement. No, to be honest, I know about something that I thought might have been the contrast stuff, but it obviously wasn't. It was something else. So yeah, let's just leave it at that. Tim saying, any estimated time for the contrast paints? I think I've heard June mentioned, so I don't think it's too far away. Hethwell says, I read a lot about commission painting. Is that such a popular option? I think, Hethwell, there's a lot of people who are commission painters, and I think the problem is that if you pay them a decent hourly rate for their efforts, and some people are fantastic painters, if you pay them a decent hourly rate, nobody could afford to get an army painted up. It's one thing if you want a bit of a showpiece. So if you buy a nice particular kind of model, you know, if you buy like a, I don't know, like a centerpiece model or something like that, and you want somebody to do a really good job on it, maybe it's worth kind of spending that money. But very few people can afford to get a full army commission painted unless you're asking for a very basic tabletop standard. And then, to be fair, the commission painter doesn't normally make much out of it. The vast majority of commission painters are at kind of two ends of the scale. One end of making it as a little bit of a side hustle type thing to maybe pay for their hobby. The other end are your kind of your Angel Heraldez and your Seb Levines, who are big studio commission painters who have teams of people working with them and stuff. You're probably not going to sort of be. There's not many people do commission painting as a full-time job. Let's put it that way. Where are we at? Tim says, prediction, new kill team expansion for vehicles. Did you see, Tim? Somebody had done a bit of a kind of like a mock-up, like a meme thing where it was kill team, like coming soon, kill team vehicles. You might as well play a 40k or something like that. It was quite funny. I was trying to dig it out. VJ saying now he's more interested. Yes. I can't say anymore. I'm not even supposed to know, so there you go. Luke's in as well. Good evening, buddy. How you doing? He's saying he can't wait for them. Yeah, me too. Let's have a look. Jess is saying, well, I'm off to bed. Good night. Well, thank you for dropping in, Jess. Says, great stream, by the way. Love to see the chat going like this. Even those who don't like contrast have to admit it's got us all talking. And that's why it was a good topic to pick for tonight, wasn't it? So thanks for coming in, Jess. Really nice for you to drop in. Thank you very much. Luke says, I hope you do a full box set because I'll take a lot. I think they probably will. They tend not to be any cheaper, but I think they will do. They'll probably do a box. You might get them in, you know, those little kind of the black plastic tray things that they do, like the hobby trays. You might get one in something like that or in like a nice box or something. Paul says, just think if you've got a good brand, then maybe you don't want to devalue it by collaborating with every Tom, Dick and Harry. You've got a point, but I think there's a point where it is actually beneficial. If you've got a really strong brand, getting it out there into different places can help as well. I'm trying to use some examples. It's like there are some brands that work together really well because they're aimed at the same market. So if you're selling toys to children, putting them in a Happy Meal works really well. For example, I can't imagine that you would get like Apple teaming up with McDonald's to put like, I'm trying to think now. There's just like, there's some collaborations that work well together. So I can see, for example, how Funko Pop toys, the Pop vinyls, of which I collect a few, you probably be able to see them out of focus here behind us. I can see how they appeal to a similar market. So there's some things that really work. I can't imagine, for example, that we're going to start getting sort of very childish comic book versions of them, of like sort of Space Marines on kids' lunchboxes. I think that's maybe a step too far. But who knows, if the IP of Warhammer becomes big enough and the cartoon stuff takes off and all of these collaborations, who knows what we'll see. VJ saying that, keep Andy talking, I reckon he can spell. No, I definitely want. When I have to keep a secret, buddy, I'm good at keeping a secret. Jamie says, a lot of commission painters are charlatans. I've never had anything commission painted, mate, and I don't think I've ever actually sort of physically sat down and have I talked to anybody face to face who's a commission painter? I don't think I have. I mean, there's plenty of kind of commission painters in and around our hobby. You see them advertising for work and stuff, but I don't really kind of. I've never seen any commission painted miniatures to say, oh well, it's actually worth the money. Death by Dice says, I do commission painting, but mainly for people I know or sell miniatures I've painted, especially for Underworlds. Some players come from board game background, and that makes sense. Kind of just doing them as a bit of a favour for mates and stuff like that, for a little bit of hobby money and stuff. But there are some people who aspire to kind of make it a full-time job, don't they, or become like a studio painter and stuff. And then I guess it becomes a very different. Then it becomes about speed and about churning them out, doesn't it? Death by Die says they aren't doing a box. One of them did mention they're just separate. That'd be interesting. Hethwell says, I'd wager many good folk buy more minis than they hope to paint and maybe then lose interest in the game due to the biblical proportions of unpainted minis. Yeah, I think they do, mate. Some people just buy stuff because they like to buy stuff, really, whether they play it or not. Douglas says they tried that with FFG and board games. Didn't work so well. Too samey. Did I miss something? What's that one about, buddy? I must have missed something, mate. I'm not sure that's in relation to. Tim says, hopefully we'll get to try the paints at UK Games Expo. I thought that today as well, mate. I thought we might be able to try them there. And King John says Apple would definitely market toy phones to McDonald's. Paul saying he kind of commission painter. I randomly decide to paint a model for my friend Miranda and then send it. That's not a commission painter. That's just being a good friend, buddy. Not unless she's sending you money for it. Al says to expand an IP like Warhammer, you need to connect with other brands like McDonald's, like Bandai, like Funko to drive your niche brand into the mainstream. GW will control the IP always. Yeah, and I think they've realised actually that Warhammer 40,000 as a brand has a lot of legs to be able to build off the back of, and they're really exploring that now. And they're the only gaming company to do it. Other gaming companies are coming the other way, taking other people's IPs and making games out of them, like Walking Dead, like let's have a think, like Dark Souls, that kind of stuff, like Resident Evil. Most gaming companies are going the other way because they don't have the clout, or they don't have a big enough brand. But GW with 40k, they very much do. Hendrik says, will they make a blurple content? I think they probably will, mate. I think they probably will. Luke said, I want them serving in a Fabergé egg flown in by a dodo, flicked with a red train as I needed them. Can be arranged, mate. Everything's got a price. Steve saying Slanesh demons at McDonald's. I think they might pick and choose which ones they do, mate. Let's see what else we are. Fuse George is saying, are there any examples of brands being devalued by market saturation? I can't think of anything that's had its brand cheapened because of teaming up with other companies. I can think of brands, so there's a few examples of brands that have chosen not to team up, and there's some brands that have been devalued because they've kind of oversaturated the market. So if you think about from a fashion point of view, Burberry became really devalued because the kind of that Burberry check ended up as almost a uniform of a football hooligan, and every kind of, there was a lot of counterfeit stuff that was out there, and it really became devalued because it just saturated the market. A brand that actually really sort of screwed up was Cristal champagne. That a number of years ago, Cristal became really popular in and amongst the hip hop community. So kind of rappers and sort of within that kind of sort of music scene, these people were kind of showing their wealth and drinking bottles of Cristal. And Cristal actually said that they didn't want their brand associated with kind of rap music and hip hop music. So what happened was all of these rappers and stuff said, well, screw you then. And they all went and basically bought a completely different brand of champagne, and Cristal's sort of profits plummeted almost overnight. So there's examples of not wanting to be associated with things, how it can harm you. I can't think of any examples where somebody's teamed up and it's really kind of blew up in their face. I mean, you get like kind of Pepsi teaming up with a lot of different kind of singers and footballers, and I guess as long as it works, as long as your target market is the same, there's no reason to not do it. And if Games Workshop are writing books aimed at a younger audience, it might make sense that the Warhammer Adventures brand might become a kind of a McDonald's thing. So who knows? Who knows? Christopher saying there'll be a project box at Christmas. It would not surprise me. Where we at? Paul saying to VJ, how much is postage in Australia? Flying Mama says, wait, you mean Luke has been doing commissions all this time? Yeah, funny that, isn't it? Different Gear says, off topic here, but what do people do with empty sprues? Recycle, bin them, save them for something else? Have they got any other uses? You can chop them up and into small pieces and put them inside of their paint pots to use as agitators. That's a good use for them. I end up using mine as coasters when I'm sitting modelling. If I kind of clip stuff out, I'll put them down and I end up putting my coffee cups on them just so I don't burn the table. We've got Cohen. Good evening, Cohen. He says, I rolled my eyes a little at the 40k Monopoly Munchkin release, but I do like the new kids' books. My daughter loves them. That 40k Munchkin release sold out pretty much straight away. There's a huge market for it. There is a huge market for it. Paul said he's drinking Cristal now, funny enough. Same here, mate, a little bit of champagne and orange, you know what I mean? The channel's going so well now, I think I can afford a bit of a treat. VJ's, I think we're having a bit of a postage chat going on there as well. Henrik saying something in Dutch, who knows what that is? Johnny Jumbo Jumbo, did I completely miss your name, buddy? How did I not see you come in? How are you doing? Said he's in bed with Lemsip. I know the feeling, buddy. I'm just putting on a brave face here. We've got Ian Sidaway in as well. Says, well, I'll tell you what he says. He says, melt bits of sprues down in plastic glue, use as filler. Great idea, actually. I've used that before as well. Kind of, if you melt them down, you can make it as a bit of a paste. Second of all, thanks for coming to the chat, buddy. Really nice to see you. So, for those that didn't see in the Facebook group, me and Ian bumped into each other. I was out in the pub last week with my wife having dinner. He was out with his workmates and came across and said hello. And it's always nice to kind of to have a chat with people who kind of interacting among the hobby community. So really nice to see you, buddy. Hope you're doing well, and I hope you had a good night as well. Paul says, my theory is there'll be an all-in-one Kill Team book at Christmas. Then next year we'll get Kill Team version 2 with FAQs. One other thing, I saw something online the other day, and I can't decide whether it was a hoax or something, but there was mention of 9th edition of 40k. Is that a thing, or was that just a hoax? I just saw a picture out the corner of my eye while I was reading something else. Is that just a fake thing? Steve is saying, do you think that other paint companies will start making these types of paints? I'm assuming, mate, they're going to kind of sort of reverse engineer it. They'll be able to find out how they've done it, and it wouldn't surprise me if they start doing cheaper versions of it. So yeah, I can only imagine that GW are first, but they won't be last, that's for sure. Where we're going. VJ's seen you make cool terrain. Check out the Miscast Terrain YouTube channel, definitely. Al says, when we're going for a coffee, mate. Yes. I did put something up, didn't I, in the Facebook group. We seem to have a nice little group of people that's not too far away from the Northeast who might fancy meeting up for a bit of a brew. Let me have a look and see. See if we can get a suitable date. Steve's on the Jackie D. Oh, I do like a Jackie D. King John says, broken plastic screws make really good terrain sticking out of phone to look like it's broken. Exposed metal beams. They do, actually. I've seen a lot of people using them for like rebar type stuff. Douglas is saying the chat needs to know on Thursday I should have some Yorkshire biscuit tea. Nice one. Luke, I hope you've got some shares, mate, in Yorkshire tea. Bloody hell. Furious George is saying fake news. I assumed it was. I've not heard anybody chatting about it. That's what it must have been. I knew I'd seen something. Dice Tales is saying the brushes I see them use in the videos seem quite large. I use quite small brushes. Is it a mistake I'm making? The only difference between big and small brushes, mate, is the amount of control that you have and the amount of paint that it holds. To be honest, I paint with a size 2 brush for 90% of what I do. If you've got a decent quality brush that has a really good point on it, a bigger size brush will just hold more paint and it'll kind of get paint on faster. But you should still be able to do relatively detailed stuff with a good point. I can imagine that these are going to use more like a wash brush, purely to hold enough liquid in the hair so that you're not like getting streaking and stuff. So maybe I think that's maybe if you're using a small brush, buddy, you'll get nice finished models that'll just take you a while. Maybe try using a size up or 2 sizes up. What size do you use out of interest? We got Adam Edgar in as well. Says morning legends. Marty McFly checking in. How do, future boy? Nice to see you. Have you got the lottery numbers for this week for me? Ghost Days is saying a guy in a live stream said 9th edition is a slip of the tongue. Quickly corrected himself. That's where I must have heard it. I think I saw a photograph where there was kind of like people sitting chatting, and there was a little banner at the bottom that said 9th age, and I kind of dismissed it. But then I've never heard anybody talking about it as it being a big joke, so I wasn't really sure whether I just missed something. Paul saying, give me a show for the coffee. Definitely, buddy, will do. Cohen says, not 40k, but was surprised GW allowed the Talisman license to be reskinned. Was Talisman always a GW game? Or did somebody make it for them? I can't remember Talisman myself. I've seen the boxes kind of like when other people have had it, but I've never played it. Different gear TV. He says, thank God I didn't chuck them screws out. Loads of ideas, mate. Phil says size 2 is good with the Windsor and Newton. Douglas is saying size 2 is good. Yeah, I tend to use size 2 most of the time. Like I say, 90% of what I paint with a size 2 brush. We've got Dustin in as well. How are you doing, fella? He says the Munchkin 40k is an interesting one given Steve Jackson Games makes Munchkin and a different Steve Jackson founded GW. I thought in my head Steve Jackson was the same Steve Jackson. Is it not? Have I completely missed that? Did Steve Jackson and Ian Livingston, who started it, is it not the same Steve Jackson? I always thought it was. VJ says, I rarely paint with anything bigger than a 0 for anything other than washes. Takes more time, but I feel I have more control. I think the problem with using a size 0 is I find it, it's just that little bit too small sometimes, and the paint dries that little bit fast for me. Maybe I don't thin it down enough that I either end up, I have less control sometimes with a small brush. I struggle like that. Maybe it's just my skills. Tasman was originally theirs back in the day. FFG published it at one point. Ian saying Talisman's great, bit of a slog to start with, but soon boots off. Yeah, I'm not familiar with it, mate. I've not played it. Luke saying he's made 24 quid. That's nice one, mate. It's more than I've ever made of Amazon. Jamie saying, as far as I know, it's the same Steve Jackson. I always thought it was, mate. I always thought it was. And Furious George is saying, different Steve Jacksons. There you go. You learn something new every day. Paul saying, I'm getting my mate in a tabletop with Steve Jackson games, Mars Attacks, and Zombie Dice. I don't think I know the Mars Attacks Steve Jackson game. Johnny is saying FFG made Relic 40k Talisman under license and then gave it to WizKids. Do you know what it is? So, right, it all makes sense now. So, GW signed a deal with WizKids. After they moved away from FFG, they signed a deal with WizKids to start making some of their board games. Because the one I've got, which is The Rise and Fall of Anvalor, the Age of Sigmar game, back there behind me, where my pen's pointing, that is a WizKids game. So I think it's still a GW game, even though it doesn't have GW badges on the box because it's being created and produced, but they're just the license has been bought by WizKids to do some stuff. That is why it works. Jamie's saying that it is a different Steve Jackson. You learn something new every day, mate. I always thought it was the same one. So we're getting up towards time now. How are we doing? It's coming up towards past. I'm getting a bit of a dry throat, so I'm not going to go on too late tonight. So I just want to kind of start to wrap things up. I've had a really good chat tonight. I've got no idea how many people we've had in the chat. It was certainly really kind of, it's been busy. I think we've had about 48, 50 people in tonight. That's been pretty good. Chat's been flowing well. I hardly got a chance to kind of catch my breath at times. There's been some really good comments, kind of people who think they'll use the stuff, people who think they won't use the stuff. But I think we can all agree is that it's not a bad idea. Doesn't matter if you don't like it, don't use it. But there's no reason to kind of be that almost gatekeeper and tell people that it's cheating by using the stuff, or to make people feel bad. Because that's one thing that happens. There's a little bit of kind of bullying in there sometimes of anybody that uses these kind of quick methods, like dry brushing gets a bad rap, like using washes, like using army painted dip, any of that kind of stuff. People should not kind of point fingers and say that's wrong. The hobby's a big enough place for us all to do it our own ways. So, anything coming at the end of the chat here? Johnny says there was 56 watching earlier, Andy. It's going up. There you go, mate. I'm not sure. 56 might be a record, actually. I'm not sure if we've had more than that on a live chat before. When it gets above 50, it gets a little bit hectic. I can't quite keep up. So tonight I've had to kind of I've had to jump through some of the comments tonight. So if you said anything in the chat and I've missed it out, I apologise, but when it's a nice lively chat like it was tonight, it's quite hard to keep up. So I appreciate you sticking with it. And much like Furious George has just done there by putting at BlackJack Legacy, if you ever want to get my attention in the chat, it kind of highlights it and I'll see it. So he says, you need to do a video on the founding of GW. There's heaps of interesting stuff about Ian Livingstone, Steve Jackson and John Peake. Gaming history is important. I completely agree, and Cohen saying seconded there. I always assumed that that must be out there somewhere. Is there not much out there about the history, about the founding and the history? It would make a cool little documentary, wouldn't it? A nice one. Who knows, mate? I might do one day. If I could get Steve Jackson or Ian Livingstone to do a little interview as well, that'd be quite nice. Paul Knox, he says, dry brushing his life. Hear you, brother. I hear you. Skullman said, I see 67 at one point. Somebody, Fly Mammal saying 65. I'm not surprised. I think actually it's just gone up to 51 now, I think it is. That must be why I thought it was 40. I thought the number on my screen over there was what it had maxed out at. So, and Jamie says, you need moderators. I bloody do, mate. If anybody wants to be a moderator, send me a private message. I have no idea what it entails, but please send me a message. I'm after all the help I can get. So, and VJ is saying a documentary on the history of GW would be awesome. Nice one. I might look into that then. It's not something I assumed it was already out there, but if it's not, it might be a nice video. So what I will say is thank you everybody for coming in tonight. I apologise for a bit of a lack of videos last week, but I'm sure as you can hear from my nose, I had a week off last week, off work, and I spent a lot of time with the family, so free time was a little bit of a premium last week. And also I'm still kind of getting over a cold, and I didn't want to make a load of videos kind of where you can just hear me go, no. My nose is all bunged up. So yeah. I'll be back on the video trail this week. I think I'm starting to get a bit more clear now. Jamie saying kickstart it. Who knows, buddy? Who knows? That might be my route out. And Douglas saying moderators equals gatekeepers. So while we're on the subject of moderators, what do moderators do? Do they just watch out for the kind of the bad language and stuff? I know VJ, you might know, because I know Tabletop Minions has these guys who kind of help out in the chat. What do they actually do? Do I need one? King John saying a Kings of War Vanguard battle rep. Is that you saying you want another one, buddy? Do you know what? Now that I'm using this army painted dip stuff, I might get myself another army painted up and do another Vanguard battle report, because there's only the fact I haven't painted stuff is the fact that I've not done any more. I've already done 2 reports with Basileans and Abyssal and Abyssals. I've done 2 of those where me and Sam swapped round and did 2 different ones. So I want to do a different army, I think, and I've got them to paint up. Hendrik saying he could be a commission moderator. Douglas is saying yes to King John as well. Tim says, if you meet Ian Livingstone, don't accidentally call him Steve like I did at UK Games Expo. I think I always used to wonder which was which. But Ian Livingstone, do you know what I was going to say? I'll probably get them mixed up now. I'm not even going to try. I'm not even going to try and see it. Cohen says they watch for riff raff. We don't get any riff raff in here, do we? Everybody's dead nice. And Douglas is saying, they make sure the jerks don't derail the chat, but you mainly read all the text. To be honest, I've got a nice bunch of people coming here. I don't think we have any jerks. That's why I've never really felt the need to kind of have anybody in there. But it's more if there's something important that I've missed, really, that was kind of more directed at me, and I've missed it. Paul saying they can watch the live chat, comment the vids, and delete stuff, ban people. You can do whatever you need them to. Night all, and thanks for that. Thank you very much, Ruth. Thanks for dropping in again, and we'll speak soon. And Jimmy says they look after the chat. You can have them feeding questions. That's kind of the bit really that I'm more thinking about. When it gets, it's not always going to be that busy, I wouldn't imagine. But when it does get that busy, it gets quite hard. And I always feel bad that I've missed. Somebody's taking the time to come to the live chat and ask a question. If I've missed it, I always feel a little bit bad. So, VJ saying he'd be happy to do it for me if I want. I might be in touch, buddy. I might be in touch. Jamie said the link to stuff. Douglas said, I don't think we're at that point needing a mod. Once you reach 75 or 100, that's kind of where I'm thinking. It's just every now and again it gets a little bit hectic. Johnny saying, siphon out bad language and only show you the course questions directed to you and not chat between the viewers. The bad language stuff I can filter out myself because I can put filters in beforehand so it never shows up. But to be honest, we always have a good crowd in here, so it's kind of, I never really bother too much about it. And Jamie's into and Fiend course crush the heretics. That's what we want to see, buddy. He's well saying good night to all. So I think that's a good point. Any is to call it a night. So thanks very much. Thanks very much, everyone. And if you haven't checked out any of my more recent videos, I'd love you to check those ones out and keep them views coming. Thanks again for tonight, and I will see you all in my next video.